How's everybody doing today? This is Mike from Gamblers, back with another video here. I thought I'd talk about some touring experiences today, something that we haven't touched on yet. The majority of my touring experiences were from when I was actually much younger than I am now. I joined a band. What people maybe know me from before Gamblers and before the hip-hop stuff, as far as like friends or people that I went to school with or stuff, what I used to be associated with are primarily two bands. One called Festizio, that Johnny from Gamblers was in as well, and one called Vision Through Sound, who are actually still active under a different name called Yankee Longstraw. Truth be told, it's kind of a different band entirely at this point, and I don't even think they play any music that was recorded under the name Vision Through Sound, but they kind of morphed into this new band, but I was a member of that band as well. And most of my touring experiences were within those two bands, because basically what happened with me was, as far as my career trajectory, or whatever you want to call it in music, I started playing in bands when I was really young, like 13, 14, 15, sort of like getting used to music and getting used to writing songs and getting used to practicing and just, being a band like anybody else. And then when I was 15 going on 16, I joined a band called Vision Through Sound. And they were a little bit older than me. The singer was 2 years older than me, which, when you're 15 to 17 is a big difference. Now, we consider it the same age. 31 to 33 is not as different an age gap. And the guitar player was 4 years older than me, which is even more of a difference. And it's funny, actually, I was in high school and in that band, Vision Through Sound, and my senior year, I was 17, and my substitute teacher was my friend Fran, who was 21, 4 years older than me, and we were in the same band outside of school, and, had toured together and stuff, and now he was my substitute teacher, which was just wild and pretty funny. But when I joined that band, they were very, very serious as far as writing, recording, practicing, doing shows. On Long Island in the mid-2000s, it was not uncommon for us to play a show, and for small venues that are 90 to 100 people or whatever, we would pack them out. On a fairly regular basis, we would play basically packed shows. Now, these weren't the biggest venues in the world, obviously. These were small local places, but we had something going on, and those guys were really serious. We ended up, it sort of culminated in, I eventually left the band to focus on my other band, Festizio, but things kind of culminated in us even getting a potential management situation with people that had managed the Strokes, and it was a legit band. We were doing a lot of things, and we were doing a lot of touring. It was DUI. It was DIY touring. It was like sort of our own tours that we would book. We used to have something called the Bible we'd bring with us, which was just all these MapQuest printed directions before phones had GPSs in them and stuff like that. And I just thought I'd talk about some of the touring experiences. Most of my touring was done with Vision Through Sound and with Festizio. And then, after I was kind of 20, 21, 22, my real serious attention with music kind of went inward and went more personal, and I became, a producer, and I started working in hip-hop, and I was playing with an electronic band called Helicopter Goes Kaboom, and I wasn't, it was more of a stationary, just recording project, so there wasn't, my tour, that's why my touring experience is kind of in those bands. And then by the time Gamblers came around, I mean, I did some traveling while I was a hip-hop producer, like I went to Boston and I went to Los Angeles for projects. Um, and then by the time Gamblers came around, we didn't end up doing, at least in the first part of Gamblers, like I talk about that first lineup that I burnt out. We weren't doing touring because, you know, logistically we were older and stuff like that, but it was actually more because my strategy, like I always talk about, was flawed, and I was worried about pitching and trying to get people attached and affiliated with the band. And, you know, where something I could have been doing was mapping out a touring strategy for us to grow organically. But I've talked about that kind of enough for now, at least at this point, as far as mistakes I made with the first iteration of Gamblers. But I thought I'd touch on a couple memories from touring experiences. Obviously, when the world returns to normal, if that ever happens, or if that's even possible at this point. What does normal even mean? Who knows? But if touring comes back, obviously as Gamblers continues to sort of ascend, for lack of a better term, as long as we continue trending in the direction we've been trending, you know, touring is obviously going to hopefully be a big part of that. And I look forward to kind of doing it in a healthier way than maybe we used to do it. But I thought I'd touch on a couple of memories from touring just to have some fun here. I got some notes again with me as I did in my last video. Yeah, so I started when I was like 15, 16. We would go on these kind of like weekend trips. We did a lot of colleges. Some were local, but some were, you know, along the East Coast. We used to go up to Ithaca quite a lot because our guitar player, Fran, was in college at Cornell at the time. So sometimes our weekend trips, we'd go up and play at this place called the Nines. I think it's still there, I'm not sure. In Ithaca, we would do a lot of colleges in those days. We'd do colleges on Long Island too, but I just remember doing a lot of like these weekend stints, and it seemed to always be in like a college town or something like that. We do a lot of like East Coast runs. So like, you know, we did a fair amount of weekends or mini tours where we'd maybe do, 3 shows or something like that and come back. But then we'd also do longer things. I think the longest tour that I ever went on up to this point was only a couple weeks, but I mean, it might have been longer, something like that, a few weeks. And I mean, those experiences are just so intense because it's a bunch of dudes living in a van and you don't know where you're staying a lot of the times. I remember, oh my God, it still like blows my mind to think about. But one time Festizio was on tour and it was January. It was January 2008. And the first gig of the whole fucking tour, we're coming from New York, obviously, was in Michigan. And we were driving in a fucking snowstorm. And we had this old van. We used to call it Chernobyl because we always thought it was going to blow up. And we drove in a fucking snowstorm overnight to Michigan. And I don't know how we got there in one piece, but we managed to do it. And we play this gig in Michigan, and for whatever stupid reason, me and my friend Will, who had organized the tour, we didn't even check with the band that we were playing with if we could stay with them. So it's a snowstorm. We drove through the night to get to Michigan. We play the gig, and still is snowing in Michigan, and we don't have a place to stay. So I have to ask the singer of the band we played with, hey, do you mind if we stay with you? Thankfully, he said yes. Otherwise, I don't know what the fuck we would have done. But, you know, these are just the stupid things you do when you're 18, 19. You drive, you know, across the country and you don't have a plan of where you're going to stay. I mean, there's so many insane things. If I think about that same tour, we actually called it the Festizio on Ice tour because it was just in January in a fucking blizzard. Like, it felt like it was always a snowstorm or, you know, there was ice on the road. And we were driving this really old van, and we got stopped. Well, our car broke down in the middle of Ohio. I can't remember where we were going to play, whether it was Cleveland or something else. And it was like 3 in the morning, pitch black in a fucking, you know, a lot of this country, if you've traveled, is fucking empty cornfield looking type of space or farmland. I mean, you notice it when you, that's why they call it the Flyover States. When you notice it when you fly, you realize how expansive like the land of the United States is. So we're fucking nervous. We're like looking around. It looks like we're in like, you know, a bad horror movie or something, and finally a sheriff pulls up and we're like, here we go, this guy's gonna fucking kill us. And we were so out of our minds in those days that like we would give like everybody a CD. Like this cop was actually pretty nice, and he helped us like get back on the road, and then like we gave him a Festizio CD. Like, oh, thanks. Like, I remember I tried to sell my teacher in college a CD. Like, I went up to him and I was like, oh, do you want to buy my CD? He was like, no. I did a lot of fucking stupid shit. I used to like run backstage at shows. Like, I ran into like Eagles of Death Metal's green room once and gave Joey Castillo a CD. I gave a CD to the Mars Volta once. Like, you know, like that's why when I do these videos, I'm talking about like what to do, what not to do, because I've done so many dumb things. I've made so many mistakes that I'm speaking from. It's not even like, hey, do what I did because I'm successful. It's like, listen to me because I've done so many dumb things. Listen what not to do. We had another time we broke down on, I think it was the Garden State Parkway in New Jersey. And our guitar player, Vin, who was the owner of the van, he was like, oh man, he's a troubled character. But anyway, he had to get back to New Jersey because of a court case. I don't remember what he was battling legally at the time. I think he had a lot of those. So our van broke down, and he was nervous that he wasn't going to be able to get back for his court case. So he fucking left us there on the side of the road and like took the train back, and we had to wait for like AAA to come. And then these state troopers, like these New Jersey state troopers, they were like investigating our van, going through our shit, yelling at us through like speaker, like megaphones or whatever they call them, like, put your hands down, get on the, like they fucking searched us like on the floor like we were terrorists. Like, it was just insane. So Gamblers actually did do a mini tour. We did a tour with Yankee Longstraw. We played a festival in Virginia, and that was probably my last tour experience. That was in 2016, and it was such a good experience, man. We had so much fun. We were staying on this lake in Virginia. We played this festival, and we all took acid, and it was like one of the best nights of my life. Like, it was just one of those nights where you're just with your friends and you're just like fucking laughing hysterically. We could not stop laughing. It was such a great time.